Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Planning Commission work session, November the 3rd. At this time, Mr. Slay, will you give us an invocation?
Let's pray. Father God, your mercy towards us, your grace towards us, the blessings, the bounties of life that you provide to us. Father, we are overwhelmed by all of that. We thank you for it. We know we don't deserve it. We thank you for being a loving and gracious and merciful God towards us. Thank you for this place we call home that you've blessed us with abundantly. Thank you for these men who have committed themselves to serve their fellow man, serve this community, try to make for a better quality of life, to think about all of the interests of every citizen of this county, to consider what is the right way for us to grow, develop, to think through issues and challenges that confront us. Father, I thank you that they're willing to do that, and they've committed themselves to it. I thank you for the folks that serve and protect us every day, that they leave their families behind and they go out into our community, Lord, and they protect us with safety. They provide emergency response. They do all sorts of things, put themselves in harm's way, and Father, they do that. They do that with a commitment and a level of sacrifice that is worthy of praise. And Father, I thank you that we have them. They are a blessing to us. I pray, Father, that you'll protect them and keep them safe in Christ's sake.
Thank you, Mr. Slay.
Amen.
All right. Consideration and approval of September 29 minutes.
Motion approved.
Motion approved.
Second.
And second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, Ms. Renee. Oh, well, any old business?
It's a review of the Hindu Temple project on Vernon Jones Road, and Mr. Parker's gonna update, the board on, the changes.
All right.
This is the site plan, the revised plan.
So basically, what we had asked them to do was to revisit their stormwater detention in the front. And also, they originally had phase 2 completely drawn out on this site plan. And so what they've done is they have provided this revision where they just show in the red down there as future development. So we wanted to be clear, what we were approving right now was phase 1, which is the gravel parking lot. And they have also increased the detention and put some berms up to do all they can do at this point to help with the drainage in the area. So we're satisfied that they've met our request.
Motion approved.
All right, motion made by
Second.
Mr. Bishop, second. Mr. Morrison, any discussion? Not all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, new considerations.
All right, the first item under new considerations is a dimensional variance for Busby Outdoors LLC at 1307 Old Fannin Road. Mr. Busby is seeking the dimensional variance to reduce the front and side setbacks for an 11 by 22 LED billboard at Cockrell's Farmers Market. This is a .58 acre parcel. He is leasing a .037 acres of that .58 acre parcel, and the property is zone C3. That's an aerial view of the property. And then this is a site plan. He's requesting a 30-foot variance from the 40-foot front setback and a 10-foot variance from the 20-foot side setback. And so this site plan shows that 40-foot setback and then the 20-foot setback off the side property line. And you can see that the sign would be pretty much in the middle of the parking area where customers and people would park and walk underneath that sign. So this is a site plan showing the variance. The sign he's asking for a 30-foot variance, so the pole of the sign would be here. It would be 10 feet off the front property line and 10 feet off the side property line.
But would it be still in the driveway coming in?
I'll show you. So these are views of that property. And so it would be just inside that gate there, in this area. And he's here if, there are questions about that today. This is another view of the farmer's market, and then these are surrounding properties.
Anybody got any questions?
I do. I mean, are you putting it over in that corner so you can have more room for people to come and go and move around?
That's the one we want, the one over in the
Yeah,
corner.
okay.
And it's outside the gate area where the
Right.
entrance comes in.
Yeah.
Looks like it's kinda lining up with the other ones there.
Well.
I mean, that other sign, whatever it is.
Yeah, we'll be back behind it for where the pole is, so it won't interfere with it, and then behind, the ground
Right.
clearance would be above,
I'm just saying as far as,
similar.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
yeah, similar.
Inside
Placement.
that pole,
Right.
that front center probably be about where our, yeah.
On that corner right there, usually nobody pulls in and turns to the left and parks there, because through the years, they always back into the gate. So they done learned not to park over there. I mean, I'm always fixing the gate.
Plus, if we need to do anything, we was gonna do that brick and stone around it where you couldn't see the pole. If we need to do any kind of other barriers that you prefer, I can do that as well.
Hey, remind me, how tall is this?
35 feet.
35-foot sign.
That's to the top, all the way, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't mind setting a public hearing, so I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for 15 November.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right.
All right, the next item is a rezoning request by Kevin Myers on Ehrlich Road and Saddle Ridge Drive. Mr. Myers is seeking to rezone 26 acres from RE1A to RE1. The RE1A zone only allows for minor subdividing, which is defined as 4 or fewer lots, so he's requesting to go to RE1. He's proposing an 8-lot residential development. That's an aerial view of the property. And then the outline there is the 26 acres, what's inside the red. There were 2 existing homes on the property. This one will not be included in the subdivision, but this house will. And then this is his preliminary plat showing the 8 lots. 5 are gonna front on Ehrlich, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then these 3 will be on Saddle Ridge. There'll be Saddle Ridge Part 2. And he will place restrictive covenants on all of the lots. The minimum heated and cooled square footage for homes on Ehrlich is 2,000 and 2,200 for homes in Saddle Ridge. So this is an entrance to Saddle Ridge, and this is the area where the lots will be located, the 3 lots.
Is it a gated
And these are
entrance?
on Ehrlich Road.
Is it a gated entrance?
These are surrounding properties on
Private
Ehrlich.
drive. It's gonna be private property. It's gated.
And these are surrounding properties in Saddle Ridge.
What he's doing, what's going inside Saddle Ridge would be the exact thing that Saddle Ridge is. It's just,
But it's a private gated community.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a private, their road and everything.
Okay,
The other one, the others are gonna be on, Ehrlich Road. That is public.
okay.
So what's going inside the Saddle Ridge will be the same thing that Saddle Ridge is now, which is a private area. The outside part, which is outside this gate, is, will be on public road.
My recollection is that there's a road maintenance agreement that is in place amongst the Saddle Ridge residents,
Yeah.
because it is private. So those 3 lots will participate in the road maintenance agreement piece.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to set the public hearing
Yeah,
for
I second it.
the 7th. Second by Mr. Morris. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
All right, the next item is a dimensional variance and architectural review for Corey Smith, Executive Holdings LLC at 755 Highway 468. Mr. Smith is proposing construction of a 10,500 square foot Family Dollar Tree store. This is a 3.48 acre parcel that's being divided into 2 lots. The Family Dollar Tree lot is 1.64 acres, and this property is zone C2. That's an aerial view of the property. It's a corner lot with 2 front setbacks, and Mr. Smith is seeking a variance of 25 feet from the 40-foot front setback along Jamison Court, and a variance to reduce the number of parking spaces from 48 to 33. And so this is his site plan. There's going to be a shared access to both of these properties, the two lots from Highway 468. Semi-trucks will enter and exit onto 468. We do have a copy included in the application of the approved DOT permit. He shows his detention area here. And then along the rear of the property, there's an existing 30-foot wood line. And he's gonna, that will remain to screen the commercial use from the residential home on the adjoining property.
All right, I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for the 15th.
Second.
Brad, excuse me, can we look at the pictures, cause the architectural review, and make sure everything's good on that? So,
And I have one matter that I want to address as well when Ms. Renee is complete with her presentation.
okay, so these are the renderings of the building. This is the front rendering, or front elevation. It shows 4.5 feet of split face block along the bottom of the building with stucco to the top. These are the sides and rear elevations. The stucco and the split face block will wrap down the sides of the building 20 feet. The remainder of the sides and rear is proposed as metal. This is a picture of an existing store. And then this is a conceptual elevation with color specifications. This application contained a lot of detailed information, and these are views of that property. This is from Jameson Court, and this is from Highway 468. And then these are surrounding properties, and he's here if y'all have questions when we get through.
What's your concern?
Well, I don't know that I have any real concerns. It's a point that I want to make. Mr. Smith and I had missed each other. We tried to communicate yesterday, and we got bad cell service, I think, was part of the problem, so we weren't able to complete our conversation. But we're going to schedule a meeting with Mr. Smith here just as soon as we can to talk about Jameson Court. That is it's kind of one of our hybrid roads. It's one of our roads that we, at some point in the distant past, accepted for public maintenance, but it doesn't meet any of our standards. It's a substandard road. And it's going to continue to get a good bit more traffic, especially with the commercial application immediately adjacent. You saw on the site plan, Ms. Renee, if you'll flip back to show us that access that is from the Jameson Court side. If you'll see it right there, Ms. Renee put the red dot on it for me. So that's an in and out that's going to get a good bit of vehicle traffic there to a substandard road. And so what we need to address is what, if any, additional improvements to Jameson Court we will need to see in order to accommodate this request. And so that's the subject matter, is letting Mr. Smith know that we
Well,
need to have.
I know that road got paved down to a certain point.
It's public down beyond the boundaries of the property, I'm pretty sure. It's, but with the addition of fairly significant retail vehicle traffic coming to that area, it may be time now for us to address the condition of Jameson Court and what, if anything, needs to be done. I'm not saying that anything necessarily needs to be done, but we need to have the conversation.
Okay. All right.
So I'm a little concerned, obviously, about ingress, egress from 468 at that point. And I think what we know from experience, gentlemen, is that we can tell truck traffic. We can say on the front end, all of the truck traffic's gonna come and go from this particular point. But if they have an alternative that's available to them and nobody's there policing that, they'll end up using any way they can get in. And so I think we've got to anticipate that some of the truck traffic is gonna try to come through Jameson, which, being a substandard road to begin with some challenges on sight lines and some other things that we need to be cognizant of, I want our engineers to take a look at that and see what, if any, anticipation of that we need to address now. It may be time to expand that, that point of connection between 468 and Jameson Court to account for the likelihood that we're gonna get some truck traffic at that point. We don't wanna create accidents and traffic hazards because a trucker has made a decision that should have been different.
Well, I mean, I know that there is a lot of development going on 468, and I've seen where MDOT is doing turning lanes on the side, and of course, Mr. Smith said that he got approved by MDOT
Yeah,
for not
yeah,
having.
the 468 piece, I think
Yeah.
is fine, that's MDOT's deal, but Jameson is us.
Yeah,
And so we
I got
we
you.
need to have that conversation.
All right, well, I made the motion to set it, and Mr. Gaines, seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right.
Okay, so the last item under new considerations is a conditional use permit for Corey Sanders at 7217 Highway 25. Mr. Sanders is seeking the conditional use permit to construct a mini storage facility on this property. He owns 5.75 acres and the property is zone C2. That's an aerial view. And this is his preliminary site plan. He's proposing a total of 238 units. 13 of the units will be large enough to accommodate boats and RVs. They're gonna be located in this area. They will be enclosed on 3 sides. The open area will face the interior of the property and will not be visible from Highway 25. He may add gated fence enclosures to secure the units if needed. And then the remainder of the units will be fully enclosed with a roll-up door. The site plan shows that along the front, he's gonna do a decorative wrought iron fence and some landscaping. And then on the sides and rears, it will change to chain link fencing for security purposes. This is just a sketch of the entrance that he's proposing to the property with the wrought iron fence. And then these are just pictures of the gated fences that he may place there. And that's just open if they didn't have the fences. These are views of just some storage buildings. He's proposing white with burnished slate roofs. And he's just wanting to make sure he can be approved for this use before he obtains detailed drawings. He's here today if you have any questions for him. These are views of that property on 25. And then these are just
This,
surrounding.
the location is good because there's no neighborhood around it.
There's nothing out there.
And it's right on the highway where he does have a cut through. It's something that we really need in our subdivisions. When you start seeing stuff parked out on the street, there's no place they can take it. And we had one over, off, where is it? Not Baker, but, Oakdale. You know that, I think he passed away.
He did.
And full. You know, I don't know what they're gonna do to the family, but it's not nearly this upscale. And he had a waiting list. So I think it's something that we'll do fine. We just wanna make sure that it has the appeal, this drive-by look, and I know you'll do that, and we've talked about it. I make a motion, we said it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion second. I want to make one comment on the
Go
same
ahead.
thing. In dealing with Corey in his past and his reputation and all, is all first class. Everything he does is upscale, first class done. You've always been willing to work with us on anything we've asked for. Tons of discussions, meeting us in the middle on things we've asked for. So, without hesitation, I second it and for it. So.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Cross. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion is set.
All right, so the next item is a site plan architectural review for Central Mississippi Dance Studio at 1902 Highway 471. This property is located on the east side of Highway 471. It's zone C2. That's a view of the existing building. Okay, and so they previously enclosed the existing covered drive to add space to the dance studio, and now they're wanting to extend the original roof 24 feet for a covered drive. It will match the metal roof in color and will have brick columns. Ms. Cooper is here today if you have questions for her. Reagan Cooper.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, it's in my district. I've talked
This-
with Renee about it, and it's a lot of room from their business out to the road. I don't think that I don't think people even noticed. And it'll help getting children in and out, and especially in the wintertime.
This is a view of the building since
Yeah.
they've enclosed the existing
Yeah,
covered drive.
I'll make a motion that,
To approve?
well, yeah, this is to approve it.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve it.
All right, motion made by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Morrison. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion approved. All right, our nuisance property.
Yes, sir. The first item under this section here is the Sandra Temple nuisance property, 120 Summer Pine Drive. It's a District 1 parcel. We'll open that public hearing. I'll ask Ms. Renee to demonstrate with the photos. If Ms. Temple or anyone on her behalf is present, she should be prepared to come forward at this time.
Okay. So, we received a complaint
Let's see.
on September 14th of this year about the grass and the lot being overgrown with a vacant home on it. The mail was sent, it was undelivered. So these are the pictures that were taken on the 14th of September. And then these are the new pictures that were taken yesterday.
Yeah, that sure grew fast.
Hey, another month, you won't see it.
Just change the colors, that's all it did.
So this is a repeat. We've had this once before. It was declared a nuisance. It went to justice court. She pled guilty. And there was a fine that was issued and the file was closed.
But nothing was done.
Nothing was done.
How many acres? How many acres? How big a lot is it?
1.6 acres.
I mean, somebody is living in it or
No,
not?
it's vacant.
No. Well, she pled guilty. What happened then? I mean, I know she's guilty, but I'm just saying,
If
there's
she
still
didn't,
nothing been
if she
done.
didn't pay the fine, I
Be a
think there's
warrant.
probably a warrant for her arrest.
No, she paid the fine.
Did she? That's interesting.
I guess we
Chose to
could
pay the fine
Send
and
it
do
to justice
nothing.
court again, and maybe the fine a double.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
Tell us
the
if you just pay your fine, you can leave your property the way it is.
So the request this time, guys, would be, we send it back up there with a note that says the lady has been adjudicated guilty previously. The condition of the property is exactly the same. Please put her in jail.
Well, still not get it cleaned up.
Or triple the fine.
Yeah, triple it in.
Give her the max fine, threaten her with jail, whatever it takes to get it clean. Give her 30
Where
days.
is she local?
She lives in Florence, yes, sir.
Huh?
She lives in Florence. This property's in Florence, but she also has a Florence
I mean, is
address.
she an elderly? Okay.
This is a situation, guys, where it's right on the edge of being able to get your money.
It's
At
down,
1.6
it's, I
acres.
know exactly where it is.
Yeah, I think with Jared, with the problem with the cost to remove the mobile home, and the corresponding value of the property, you're not looking at being able to get your money back. I don't see it.
An acre lot there, where
Sir.
it is? An acre lot where it is?
Yeah.
Maybe.
You know better than I do what
I know
the
exactly
property
where it is.
values are there. But the consideration is gonna have to be, if the board were to decide to go ahead and do a self-help and do a cleanup, you gotta look at the value at that point. You need to be satisfied that you
Sorry
can
if I
get
let somebody look at it.
Sir?
Sorry if I let somebody look at
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Do you wanna go ahead and make a motion to send it to justice court, or do you wanna to table
No.
it right now?
I mean, what do you suggest? We've already been there and we can do it again, but I see and now I know exactly the house and yeah, they were elderly and,
So what I'd like to see us do, if it's okay, Jared, I'm not stepping on you, but I think Brad's question is, well, what do we do? If we don't know at this point whether self-help could work, my suggestion would be, let's declare it a nuisance and authorize both avenues of approach. One being send it back up to justice court and let's try that route again. The other being, alternatively, depending on Jared's findings,
alternatively, to authorize the cleanup. But it's gonna have to be based on the understanding that the value of the property is sufficient to cover the cost of the cleanup.
Right.
And how that works, just so everybody's clear, we would literally hire a vendor that's qualified to do this remedial work to go and to clean up the nuisance. And that's it. You remediate the nuisance, which would be remove the unit and clear the lot. Give us a price, you establish a lien, that goes to the tax collector's, ultimately to the tax collector's office. It's assessed to the property and goes to the tax collector's office. If the taxes are not paid, it's sold just like every other unpaid Avalon tax obligation we have in the county. So you eventually get your money with the assumption that somebody's gonna bid on it at the land sale if this is not paid.
Right.
It's taxed.
And you say it's just an acre,
1.6.
Yeah.
almost 2 acres.
We could just put some fertilizer out there.
Yeah.
One more year, you won't see it.
Another 60 days
Well, I
of
mean,
growth.
what I'm thinking, I kinda know the way it used to look when it's clean. I think all that needs, I mean,
Bush hogging.
a clipping, and then the house, obviously, the old trailer needs to go, but, I mean, as far as, it was a clean yard at one time.
With
It
the-
was a decent place.
With the roof on there, it's been modified. It looks like it was
Yeah,
a
they put
roof
a
built
roof, yeah.
over a roof.
And it's been that way for years.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember going there campaigning when they lived there.
So I mean, if you go moving this off that property, I don't know if that roof will.
No, you're
Stay
gonna
on
tear-
it,
you're gonna
have to tear it
down.
out.
I think it's gonna tear it off. Yeah, now you make it tear the roof off and move it, but still it's not livable, you
Yeah,
have to tear it
right.
down. You might move it and tear it down somewhere else, but.
What's
But
your-
what I'm getting at, the property, I think mainly needs, from what I remember, it was clean, it just needs to be clipped and bush hogged, and then the mobile home is the main thing. Yeah,
What's your pleasure?
so I want to do just what Craig said, we declared a nuisance, but I'm gonna do
Get your
whatever, send it
price.
back.
We need to
But I'm gonna let
evaluate
some
which of
look
the
at
two.
it and see just kinda what we're talking about.
All right, we got a motion declared a nuisance, and I'll second that motion. Any more discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign.
Item 2, Mr. President, is the Burley Johnson nuisance property review. Valerie.
I don't know why she did spell that way, she called herself Valerie.
All right, Valerie Johnson nuisance property review. This is at 192 Floyd Street in District 1. This is a matter that's been before you previously. You may remember that the lady and her son appeared before you not more than about 45 days ago for a nuisance consideration, if you recall. The son committed to you that that she was now resident with him in his home, and that he was undertaking a responsibility to help get this situation cleaned up on her behalf. And he made some pretty substantial commitments to you, satisfied you that he intended to do, and y'all gave them the benefit of the doubt to see to it that it's done. The son has since contacted our office and has reported that despite his best efforts, his mother has blocked every attempt that he has made to try to clean the place up, and has even called the sheriff's department on him. Wow. And so we are dealing with a very sad situation here, and one that does not appear that it's going to be settled or resolved without some level of court intervention here. I think we're dealing with an individual that does not have capacity. We're dealing with an individual that's not able to make decisions for herself. And so I have some thoughts about what could be the next steps. I want Renee to go through the photos, the most recent photos
Yeah.
with you.
And
You'll
the
see
bridge
that
The
some
boy,
work's
the
been
boy
done.
actually made a real effort,
Yeah,
more
he
than
did.
I thought he would.
These are the old pictures, so I'm gonna get to the new ones. These are the new ones.
Yeah.
In November, yesterday.
He even got a bridge started across it. Yeah, see?
So that's a new culvert that's been installed.
It's gonna gonna float.
Yeah, it's gonna float down the creek.
First good one.
Well, you know what, you're probably, I'm curious when it was put in there, because, you know, we had all that rain and everything floated. It must have been done after that.
Yeah.
He's got it wet.
But either
Unless
way,
he got it.
he can get it, he made an effort to do it,
Yeah.
and then she's just
Yeah.
run him off.
Yeah.
So these are,
Look,
you know.
Mm.
So is she living back there?
I don't know about that.
Like somebody throws their garbage in the front yard.
That's not all she does in the front yard.
Oh,
Do they pay a garbage bill?
Garbage bill clerk.
Well, I think she,
Yeah.
And it's current.
I don't know.
So there's really, the unfortunate reality is that this is kind of a two-step process, okay?
yeah.
The first step in the process is, and this just comes in the form of consideration. You guys are the decision makers. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you my thoughts about a process that could potentially work should you choose to do it. You always have the option to simply do nothing. And I don't think that that's a viable option for us. This has been an ongoing problem that has
14
gotten
years.
worse and worse and worse.
We've been
And
dealing with this.
it doesn't appear to me that
10,
doing
12
nothing
years.
is an option, a viable option. The option that I am suggesting is the only workable option at this point. Keep in mind, an individual that does not have capacity is not subject to being noticed to a criminal proceeding. She doesn't have the ability to understand the charges and to respond to those. The court would be cognizant of that and would say, I can't get jurisdiction over this person. I've got to have somebody with authority, with some sort of court-ordered authority to act on this person's behalf, which leads me to my recommendation. You guys can authorize, through me as board counsel, the preparation and the filing of a proceeding in Chancery Court asking the Chancery Court to appoint a conservator over this lady and her property. And then that gives me a viable third party with whom to work to remediate this problem. It removes her from the decision-making, and therefore, to the extent that she desires to hold on to items that clearly should be removed, she no longer has the ability to hold on to those items. They can be removed despite her objection, and this property can be cleaned up. Now, what is always going to be a problem here is that eventually, in order to solve this problem long-term, she needs to be removed from this property. This no longer needs to be her property, because what will happen is we'll get it cleaned up with the court's help, and then she will go back to the property and it will get trashed up again.
Guys, I don't think she's got running water, electricity, anything there.
So by having a Chancery Court proceeding look at these issues, and once we can get court-ordered access to that property, I think we can develop, through what we find, a factual determination that this property is uninhabitable. And then I've got a proceeding within which the court can order that she no longer has the right to be on the property. And that's what we're gonna have to try to do here. It's long-term, it's cumbersome, somewhat expensive. She has rights, despite her lack of capacity, she will have rights. We will have to get a physician involved to establish that she is without capacity. And so there's a very real cost associated with moving through this process. But guys, we've not had to deal with a situation like this where we literally have someone who has no mental capacity.
It's I mean, you couldn't live, from what I understand, you couldn't be inside, and from everything I know, you really don't want to be outside either.
So the lady needs professional help. She's not willing to seek it out.
Off in the bushes.
I'm not gonna say I don't care about that, I do. But I care, the lady needs help.
She needs help.
And I'm not, forget that, you know,
I think that Chancery Court would be the best.
yep.
avenue for.
Right.
Uh,
And lest
I
anyone
re-
think that we're being
I don't mean, I have
overbearing.
heartburn in saying we're gonna take her property.
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying. I'm glad it's not in my district.
Yeah. So lest anyone, and I don't wanna embarrass the lady just for the sake of
I
embarrassment,
know.
but I do want folks who are paying attention to what we're doing here and have concerns that maybe we're being a little aggressive. I wanna make it clear and plain. This lady, her behavior goes well beyond just what we see as an obvious hoarding situation. She bathes herself in the front yard.
That's what I said. That was what the picture I was painting, Bob. You put it,
This is a
Pretty clear.
mental problem, and I think the courts are the only forum within which to address this.
Yep.
I don't know, and you know, the neighbors, the people that live around there, they have been so tolerant and patient and non-tolerant. I mean, they just gone back and forth, and they've just reached out to help, but now they're thinking, you know, there's nothing y'all gonna be able to do. And, I really thought this last deal was gonna work out, and I think it would have. This boy surprised me into all his efforts and what he did. But then whatever happened, she just shut him down, and, I guess cause he was getting rid of too much of
He
her
was
stuff.
touching her stuff.
Well, I think the courts need to know that the son went out there to try to do and did a lot of work and then got.
He did a lot more than I ever thought he would do. I'll say that.
So what would I suggest here is, if the board is ready, and you may not be, you may wanna think about it a little bit, but, we need to embark on this long-term solution using the Chancery Court process, which is the only thing we have available to us to do this.
I don't want to put it off
No,
for her safety.
right.
You know, I think we should give it attention now.
I would request then that the board move, and to authorize me to initiate a conservatorship or guardianship proceeding, whatever is appropriate under the law, have the Chancery Court involved to evaluate her mental condition, and then to determine and fashion a remedy that helps us get her the help she needs. That would be the request.
It was maybe a term or two ago, there was two people. And I'm remembering some of the same type things were going on back then. Remember
On this place?
Yeah,
Yeah. This is a frequent flyer.
Yeah, this actually started, Steve, about 12 years ago.
yeah, okay.
And it's gotten worse. I mean, she'd make a little attempt, like she'd get up, push more and cut.
Yeah.
But, it's just nothing. And the problem is, everybody that's reached out to try to help, they've exhausted everything. I mean, even her family.
So,
Well,
anybody, you wanna make a motion on that?
It's your
I think-
deal, and I support you, whatever way you
I
go.
mean, I don't see any choice but to go ahead and do something. It's not gonna go away.
Yep.
And, I mean, and like you just said, or like y'all was saying, if water gets up
Yep.
enough, that garbage is gonna be
Downstream.
downstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neighbors.
Yeah, so, I make a motion to go with Greg, basically, turn it over to you, let
Yes,
you
sir.
move forward. And I hate it, and I want people to know that we have exhausted everything we could do
That's correct.
to make it happen.
Yep.
Our department, I mean, it's just, all you gotta do is mention it, they know, it just doesn't go away.
All
I
right.
second it.
I got a motion, Mr. Morrison, a second by Mr. Gaines. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
I am curious where she's living now,
All right.
if she's not with us.
Next meeting will be on December 29th.
If that's the board's,
Desire?
yes, sir. Normally, we haven't had one in the last of December, so your option would be February the 2nd.
February the 2nd.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sometimes we use that last couple of days in the calendar year to clean up some things. It's a handy day to have. If we could make that work, that'd probably be helpful. We may not have to have it, but it'd be good to go ahead and set it if you guys are willing.
At what point would you be able to cancel
Yeah.
that meeting? I'm saying, once
If we-
you publish it and post it,
Yes, sir.
you're stuck to that date at that point?
Well,
Well, if-
Well, as long as we don't set any public hearings for that
Right.
day, we
Yeah.
just don't have to have one.
I think we can get an announcement out. Daniel, my default setting would be, let's make sure that we notify the public at least a couple of days ahead of time. just to.
Well, I
as a
think a
courtesy.
couple weeks before we will know.
I
Wouldn't
think
you
you're right, I think you're right.
New Year's Eve. Is that right, 31st? Didn't you say the
It was
31st?
the 29th.
29th.
Oh,
But I mean, it's that Thursday, right?
I'm good with skipping it.
I'm good with skipping it. And I guess my thing is, how much notice do you have to put out? 2 weeks, 15 days,
Yeah, so
30?
if we get into December and we see, we better,
We need something?
we have the ability to set a special hearing.
Then just do
Okay.
that. That'd be my suggestion.
That's an option that you have, we can set the special
If
hearing.
something comes up, you gotta have it, then set the hearing.
We gotta do that well ahead of time, I think it's 5 days, but we'll have time to do that if we see we need it.
All right, Mr. Nay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so
You
I
asked
made a
somebody already?
mistake. I
Huh?
made a mistake.
Uh-oh, no, not you.
The next meeting will be December the 1st. I got way ahead of myself. So we'll have one on December 1st, but yeah, so we're not gonna have the one that would be on the,
Oh,
All right, so our
Change
next,
29 to December 1, how about it?
gee, Renee, you almost
our
made
next
it the
planning
whole year without a
commission will
mistake.
be December the 1st at
Sorry.
9 a.m. All right. We need a motion,
Recess.
motion to recess by Mr. Bishop,
Second.
second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, let's move over to, let me get my paper.
I just don't know where it is.
And I guess move into the Board of Supervisors meeting now. We need a motion on that? We don't have to have a
No,
motion.
you can open it up.
I'm opening it up. All right, public comments. Mr. Teddy Lee, One Way Paving, LLC.
Let me jump up here, gentlemen, get just a little bit of background. County was contacted by some constituents that had been approached by this company called One Way Paving LLC. I think, and I can stand to be corrected on this. My recollection is that these were primarily driveways for private customers that were being installed. I want to say they were affiliated with our Andrew Chapel Road project, if I recall correctly. And so there was communication that was received on the part of the county that some of these customers did not believe that an adequate disclosure of services and costs had been made on the front end, and were surprised when they got the bill, exactly what they were being charged for the services. I investigated and discovered that One Way Paving LLC, and I'll let this gentleman speak here momentarily, but my understanding is that they operate out of Madison County, and that they do not have a privilege license to operate in Rankin County. And I stand to be corrected upon presentation of the appropriate privilege license. And so I considered that to be a transient vendor situation, which if you're not going to get a privilege license to operate in our county because you're operating as a resident, we require a transient vendor order, or compliance with our transient vendor ordinance, which would require the securing of a permit, the placing of a bond, and some other responsibilities that go along with operating in Rankin County as a transient vendor. And so it was conceptually, it looked like the type of, hey, you've got this road work going on out here and we're handy and we can help you with paving your driveway now that you've got a nice, bright, shiny, beautiful looking road out here. We can do services for you and get that all shaped up for you so that when you come off of the new pavement, you've got a nice, smooth area here. That it was a door-to-door transient vendor type of arrangement where private property owners were being contacted. They weren't seeking out the service, they were being contacted. And so that raised a lot of red flags for us. People they're being solicited, and there may or may not be an adequate disclosure about the services that are going to be provided. So we said, whoa, stop, halt, get squared up with us, and I suspect that that's why this gentleman is here today.
All right, state your name and your address.
Good morning. My name is Toby Gamble. I'm Mr. Lee's attorney. I operate out of Dunbarton Street in Jackson, Mississippi. I represent Mr. Lee in several matters regarding collections of customers that refuse to pay. With the comments made by the board attorney, I don't know who these individuals are that have allegedly had some complaints. Mr. Lee would be here today, but he called me at 7:30 this morning, and he's been sick for 2 weeks and in quarantine. So if you want to hear from him at another time, we can certainly reset the meeting, but I want to make my comments this morning.
Did you just say that you are working for him to collect monies that people,
I'm
and then
getting,
you said, but there was nobody had any conflicts, or?
no, sir, that's not
Why
what I,
not?
that's not what I said.
Oh,
I'm talking about,
misunderstood.
I don't know who these people are that made these comments and these concerns to call and contact either the board attorney or the board.
Yeah.
I do know that I have just 3 matters pending for Mr. Lee, that he operates under a contract, and his contract is very specific to square footage, what he will pave, and the exact cost of what projects are. He does not go door to door. We do not believe he meets the transient business sales definition in the ordinance, because that ordinance says transient business sales shall mean the sale of any item, with such sales being temporary or seasonal, not conducted from an established building, and those items sold door to door. He's not selling items door to door. He operates on referrals, and then if there is sometimes flyers, his 2 sons that operate the business with him give out to individuals and say, you might want to consider getting your driveway fixed. But he does not go knocking door to door. This is not that type of operation at all. He operates statewide, and most of them are private contracts, and he works through contracts. And I can provide the board attorney or the board a copy of his contract to show that it is very specific what he tells customers, and it even explains, I'm charging you by the square foot. I'm not charging you by the yard, the linear foot, and it's very laid out in his contract. So we have had 3 people that, after signing contracts with specific amounts, have complained that they are not going to pay, and then try to negotiate and say, well, I can give you 2/3 of that, and I think you need to take a break on that. So I don't know who these individuals are that called. I suspect it's one of those persons that's a disgruntled customer, but Mr. Lee operates a reputable business and operates all over this state, and we've never had this type of issue before. These blind comments or persons calling in.
Is he, is his home base in Madison or somewhere?
Yes, sir, 529 Bozeman Road is where he operates out of. And he owns
What's the Bentonia location?
Well, he used to have an office in Bentonia, but he operates out of 529 Bozeman Road, and he owns a parcel of property next to that where all his equipment is stored.
Well, obviously, we take the position that he's a transient vendor. Mr. Gamble's welcome to make that argument wherever he wants to make it. I think what the board needs to make clear is that if One Way Paving LLC wants to operate in Rankin County, it needs to satisfy our transient vendor ordinance first.
What's so difficult about doing that? I mean, is that a real difficult process?
Now, it's not difficult. It's securing
For a
it.
builder builds a house, he gets a permit.
That's correct. Securing it from the tax collector's office. The sheriff reviews it. There is a bond requirement, and I'm confident that Mr. Lee is not going to want to pay the bond, post the bond, but we need the bond. That protects the collection of sales taxes may be owed on this service, and so there's a very real reason for that. But I can understand why folks that are out of county, out of state, don't want to satisfy our transient vendor ordinance. There's some obligations there. We need to know who they are. How are you doing your business? Mr. Gamble mentioned flyers, and that's that is, in fact, the conduct that was discussed with us. These people show up and tell us why you need their service. That's a solicitation. Whether they knocked on the door or not, whatever, They drove up in the driveway. I don't know how these sons were soliciting the business. What I do know is they showed up, they started doing some work, and then they had additional communications with adjacent property owners. And the next thing we know, we're getting phone calls about, hey, these guys are running ruses out here. They're giving us a price or telling us, telegraphing a price, and when I get the bill, it is a lot more than any discussion we had.
Where was this happening at?
This is out at the Andrew Chapel
Andrew Chapel.
area.
Yeah, the driveway.
I had not this, but in the past, I have had where we build a road and then someone comes in toward the end of it, almost like they're part of the road building. You know, they kind of associate
Yeah.
that, the homeowners, and go, well, sure, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, so.
That was not the
One
case.
idea, if Mr. Gamble's client is not willing to satisfy the responsibility that he has to comply with the transient vendor ordinance or secure a court order that says he doesn't have to, which is always his prerogative, he's welcome to do that too. But if he doesn't do that, then I think the only thing we have left to do is to try as best we can to get the word out, that before you deal with this much, you need to call the supervisor, you need to call the road manager, you need to call the board lawyer, and just ask about history on them.
Okay.
So that's all we wanted you to know. I think I've heard enough.
So, I mean, all this is just public comment,
Yeah,
right,
just
Brad?
public comment.
Just discussion. Okay.
All right,
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you. Anyone else like
Have a
to
good day.
speak in the public comment section? If not, who's
I'm
going?
gonna tell you what, I'm gonna step up here and take Mr. Harrison's spot, the
Okay.
road manager, and request for approval for an AT&T permit. Now, I just wanna say that I've done it, and it's gonna be in District 3, so I'm not gonna have to live with the consequences of what they do to you. But I do wanna tell you, when I request for this approval, the scorched earth that comes with approving a installation of fiber in this area, so.
If I could ask, guys, the last several AT&T permits that we've provided a permit for, we have conditioned that permit on AT&T acknowledging that any and all claims that they are making for damage or whatever other type of claim that they are making against the county, that they are waiving those claims. And so I would ask that we do the exact same thing here. This permit is issued with the understanding that any and all claims that AT&T may think they have against Rankin County for anything are waived in exchange for the securing of this required permit.
All right, that'll be my motion to approve for Mr. Harrison. Good job, Mr. Harrison.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaines. And any further discussion? I got to say one thing. I know Burnham Road's not a wide road. And I mean, they're going to have to probably go on private property to put most of this down because it's not a lot of right of way.
I don't know about that project. Are these permits mostly for crossings?
Craig, this one, I don't remember, it's been a while since I looked at it, I don't remember, but they're in the
It's-
back 5 feet of the right of way or off on the utility
Right,
easement.
okay, all right. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Mr. Slay.
Thank you, gentlemen. First item under my section, item A, is to set the public hearing for November the 7th at 9 a.m. for the Kevin Myers rezoning request. This is the Ehrlich Road and Saddle Drive that y'all looked at earlier, District 1 property. I just need a motion to set that.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Morrison.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign.
Item B, gentlemen, is acknowledgement of receipt of a notice of recusal that was received from our Justice Court concerning a matter that is pending before the Rankin County Justice Court. All of our Justice Court judges have recused themselves. Everyone in our prosecutor's office has recused themselves. You know the details. One of the accused is someone who works very closely with our Justice Court through law enforcement connections, and so because of that, the recusal was necessary. So this would be a ratification on the part of the board by the Justice Court clerk to request the appointment of Don Leland, who is the City of Flowood Municipal Judge, as our substitute Justice Court Judge for that matter, and also the authority to appoint and pay the county administrator for the county administrator to pay Mr. Leland for services that are contingent upon negotiation.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Gaines, second by myself. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Item C, Mr. President, is ratification of the authority for the board president to execute contract documents for the Vernon Jones Avenue Drainage and Roadway Improvements Project. Can you believe that? Your very first ARPA project.
And that's Jay's
And
project?
To Jay Bishop.
I
Very
don't
first
know
one.
if I want to.
So we just need
Vote
you
on
guys
that.
to ratify the execution of those documents, please.
Hey, take my pulse. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Do you feel it?
So,
It's awfully close to District 2.
Yeah, good.
all right, we got a motion by Mr.
Second.
Bishop,
Hey.
second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion?
I'm telling y'all, I've said this, everybody's asked me, who do you think the best county supervisor is in Rankin County? People asked me before, and they said, well, he's gonna say, Dan, no. It's Jay freaking Bishop. There ain't no doubt in my mind. You hear me? He could play this system and game better than anybody. If I could, listen to me, if I could ever endorse one county supervisor, it's you. There ain't no doubt in my mind.
going to record
You're my favorite. You are, I'm telling you right now, I don't care who's listening or where you're gonna put this out. You are my favorite supervisor ever elected. You know what I'm saying?
All right, any more discussion
I
before
want that-
Jay's
I
head
need
blows
that in-
up
I need
over
that
there?
in the minutes. Samantha, you're over there asleep. Look, she's asleep over here in the corner. What do you get your eyes closed over there? Huh? Samantha.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Item D, I'd ask, please, we're gonna put that on November 7th. I don't want you to act on item
February
D
fine.
today. Yeah, November 7th, okay? Ms. Sam, can you please make sure?
We moving D to
And, and the reason we're moving it is because we don't know for a fact, as we sit here today, that we need it, okay? So, just hang in there with us. We may need it. If we do, we'll let you know on Monday, all right?
All right,
Item E, Mr. President, is a discussion of that FILOT, that stands for Fee in lieu of Taxes Agreement. This is pretty exciting to be able to talk about. I'm thankful Mr. Marks is here today to hear this, because I definitely want to invite him or someone from the news to come back on Monday when we make this official, assuming the board is of a mind to approve this. So we were contacted a few weeks ago on behalf of economic development through Rankin First, and we had it explained to us that there was an inquiry that had been made at the state level by a company that is based in Wisconsin. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to find out before Monday how to pronounce it. I think it's pronounced Menasha, M-E-N-A-S-H-A, Menasha Packaging Company. It may be pronounced Menasha, but I'll find out before we start saying it officially on Monday. Menasha Packaging Company out of Wisconsin is a international packaging operation that creates specialty packaging materials for retail applications. And so if you think about all of the ways that we receive retail products that are on the shelf, there are any number of those that come in a corrugated box or cardboard box of some description with protective packaging that is enclosed so that during the shipping process and the placement process, whatever the item is that's being purchased is protected. Menasha makes all that, and they do that at facilities, plural, across the country and also internationally. It's a big outfit. This is a family-owned operation, and they've been in business for quite a long time, many decades. And so we're excited about what is happening in that industry, and here's what's happening that affects Rankin County. Georgia Pacific has been in the corrugated packaging business in Pelahatchie, in the industrial park in Pelahatchie, for decades. And they recently made a decision, the corporate decision, that they are selling all of their packaging operations. They sold all of their, Georgia Pacific sold all of their stateside packaging operations, whole cloth, to Menasha. And because Menasha has operations in multiple places across the country, there was the very real possibility that they would relocate the Pelahatchie operations somewhere else. And so there became a need, and the state saw this need. There became a need to address with Menasha what their plans are. We saw the potential that there would be a relocation of this very important industry. Here's the importance of it, and you may not know this, but Georgia Pacific's operations, which are called Color Box, that may be how you are familiar with the company. Color Box's operations in the industrial park employ between 100 and 125 individuals. So a significant payroll, a significant employer in Rankin County, and there stood the possibility that we would see the relocation of those operations. And so through the work of the Mississippi Development Authority at the state level, through the work of our folks at Rankin First and those interactions and connections, we are now able to report officially that Menasha intends to stay in Pelahatchie. And not only that, they intend to expand the operations in Pelahatchie, and they intend to add jobs at the plant. And so the real win here for our county is that we both retain an employer and we get more employment as well. And so that's a really big win for the county.
What's the employment right now?
Between 100 and 125 personnel. They're running 2 shifts at the moment, Brad. My understanding is that Menasha intends to run more shifts, that their company, the structure of their company and the nature of the product that they produce, which is slightly different from what is produced at Color Box now, will require them to ramp up production. And so they have made a commitment to the state. Of course, just to clarify, Rankin County, we don't have anything to do with the jobs commitment. That's the state that makes that commitment, gets that commitment. But they've committed to the state that they're adding 21 jobs. They put that in black and white. They're adding 21 jobs to that facility, and that'll be the responsibility of the state to see to it that that actually plays out. I would be willing to bet you that that is probably a conservative estimate on the actual number of jobs that they will add at this location. And so let's talk about the investment that they're making, which is also a part of the big news. Since I've been board attorney, since I've been doing work helping supervisors, which is now, I'm in my 14th year, it's hard to believe, we have not to date had an investment situation of an existing business where we could entertain the possibility of a fee in lieu of taxes. The minimum investment under state law to qualify for a fee in lieu of taxes arrangement is $60 million. $60 million. So Menasha has, with the state, with Rankin First, they have committed in writing that they are making a minimum of $60 million in enhancement, renovation, upgrades, you name it. They're going to expand the operations of the Pelahatchie Industrial Park location. They're adding jobs, and they are bringing $60 million in minimum investment to that facility. So it's a big deal. I get it's odd. Here we stand, one day removed from the state legislature entertaining a special session on a $2.5 billion impact industry in Columbus. And so we may think that we're getting a little bit overshadowed by that. I hope we can get past that pretty quickly, because this is a big deal for Rankin County. Right here. $60 million in investment, additional jobs. And so what you'll be asked to do, and this is just discussion, we'll have this back in front of you on Monday for actual consideration and potential action. on Monday. We're gonna have individuals here from the company. Their legal counsel will be here. We'll have representatives, I believe, from the town of Pelahatchie. I've had a number of conversations with the mayor, and he is very excited, as you can well imagine.
Sure is.
And so he intends to be here with us as well. We'll have, we're gonna have a representative from the Mississippi Development Authority with us, which is great. We're gonna actually have folks from Rankin First here with us, and so this is gonna be a good opportunity for us to showcase what we're all about in Rankin County and how much we appreciate folks that are willing to come in and invest and actually bring jobs here. And so I think it's great.
It's Monday.
It's great. I'm just really excited. Monday, yes, sir, Monday. If you'll look at your, I think you've got the agenda in front of you. I'm asking for the courtesy of letting us put this right behind public comment, since we're gonna have guests with us. And so I wanna put Ms. Marcus on notice,
Yep.
right after we gavel in at 9 o'clock, we're gonna have this hoodoo. And so we'll have a big discussion about that. I'm really excited about that.
Will you spell that Menasha
Yes, sir.
again?
Menasha. Menasha?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I just wanted to say that word.
Menasha.
You just want to have a new big word.
Yeah, I won't be able to say it in
Thank
30
you.
minutes.
Menasha.
Menasha.
Yep. And so, Wisconsin, folks from Wisconsin, they'll have a little bit of a clippish accent to them, so let's make them feel welcome when they get here, okay?
Is Keith picking them up at the airport or what?
Keith's actually gonna bed them down at his house. He's gonna feed them.
I was scared you'll
He's
say
gonna
Mike
drive
Word.
them
That was the one I was worried
around.
about.
He's gonna let them use his vehicle. And so, yeah, so we're gonna
We
try,
ought to give them police escort.
we're gonna try to make sure that they're well taken
Shut the
care of.
interstate down.
Yeah, let me tell you guys this, logistically, this is the fee in lieu of taxes agreement actually has to be approved both by us and by the town of Pelahatchie. And so the town will have its meeting Monday night. And so, there will be some additional activity that has to take place, assuming that the board, again, assuming that you guys are willing to do this. And that gets handled on Monday morning. We still have Monday evening to get through their board meeting there. So keep that in mind. This will be a partial end of the story, so to speak.
Do we need to have any representation there at the Pelahatchie?
I've already invited myself to be there, Brad. Unless you guys feel like you need to be there, you're welcome, obviously. And I would encourage you guys, anybody that can come to their board meeting to come. I would like for them to know of your support for this, but I don't anticipate that
And
there's
when
going
is
to
their
be any
board
issues.
That
Monday night.
That's what I thought.
6
They get
o'clock?
started at 7 o'clock, but unless they've changed their board meeting times.
Okay.
I'm going from old memory here. It was at 7 at one time. They may have backed it up to 6, so
I'm not
we need to
sure.
confirm that.
Yeah.
We'll
think
get
it's
an
6.
email out to you
I think
guys
it's
on
6
that.
o'clock.
All right. So, the fee in lieu, I should have told you this, the fee in lieu looks like this. For a period of 10 years for the initial investment, they are entitled to, assuming that they meet all of the responsibilities that are laid out for them under both the MDA's regulations and they meet any conditions that you guys may wish to set. You can do that, should you choose to do so. They are eligible to pay in lieu of what would be the otherwise valuation and assessment for ad valorem. They pay 1/3 of what they would pay in taxes, and the way that tapes out for us is the county will receive 1/3 of its portion of the ad valorem taxes for that 10-year increment. The city will receive 1/3 of the taxes for that 10-year increment. The school district will receive 1/3 of its taxes for that 10-year increment. That's the way a fee in lieu works. You look at the taxes, and in lieu of the taxes, you pay the 1/3 amount. That's why it's called that, right? So it is a healthy incentive from the county and the city and the school district to this employer. It's a good incentive, but in order to incentivize the investment, this is the kind of public-private cooperation that we need to make sure that we keep this employer and that we get good, valuable investment. At the end of the 10-year period, everything is on the table for tax purposes and they pay the normal ad valorem tax rate. So
Slade,
that's how a fee in lieu works.
Who monitors their investment?
The state of Mississippi.
So for example, they would have to produce records to show that, hey,
Yes, sir.
we did throw in $60 million worth of
Precisely.
investments. And if it
That has
doesn't,
to be certified by the state.
to the state, right?
We receive notification of that. And by the way, none of this kicks in until they have substantially completed and complied with all
State,
of the
yeah.
investments. So the state has to tell us they're good to go.
Gotcha.
Then it is implemented at that point in time.
Yep.
They're
I guess
anticipating a period
the reason I
of-
was asking that, I just wanted to be sure we understood that the state has an involvement, period. They're the
Absolutely.
third-party validation of the deal. It's not just,
It literally, and you know, I don't know if we'll get to this level of detail. The county has no obligation to do anything until there has been a certification by the Mississippi Development Authority. Now, we don't do anything except put the tax on it as we see structures coming out of the ground. We tax it, we assess it, we value it, we tax it. That's what we'll be doing. For them to qualify, they have to meet those markers, we get certified, then we implement the fee in lieu. The agreement on the front end is to say, so that they don't have to wonder after they have spent all the money, they don't want to have to wonder, I wonder if that board still feels like they are willing to do a fee in lieu with us. So this is the incentive to get them to come on and go, but they still have to comply. All right, anybody got any questions about that? How that works? Okay,
It is 7 PM Monday,
7
Seven.
p.m.
7 PM.
thank you. Mr. President, if I can ask for your indulgence, please, I have a couple of items that I need to discuss with the board. One of them is not on the agenda and is subject to having some action on Monday should the board allow it. I'm going to ask Mr. Chris Gurris to step forward at this point. I want to talk to you about the Flowood Town Center Tax Increment Financing Plan. In 2018, this board and the city of Flowood approved a tax increment financing plan. Chris, remind me, I think that was an amendment, actually. The original approval of the TIP was in 2008. Yes, and so this is a project that has been on the drawing boards for a long time. This is a mixed-use development called Flowood Town Center. I think some on the board are familiar with it because you heard about it even back that far. But when we say mixed-use development, you've got both commercial and residential structures, occupancy within the footprint of this entire development, which is well over 100 acres. I don't remember the specifics on that. In 2008 and then again in 2018, there was a definition of a tax increment financing district. There was an impression of a specific acreage within which the TIF would operate. And then the properties that were outside the TIF boundaries would not be included for tax increment financing purposes. My recollection is that that original tax increment financing district footprint was about 30 acres. So about 30 out of 110-ish. Couple hundred acres. So just a smaller footprint out of the larger acreage was for tax increment financing purposes. And so that was done in 2018, and there was a plan that was adopted, a development plan that was adopted and made an exhibit to your action in 2018. Okay? And that plan showed buildings and structures and roads and some level of infrastructure so that it was clear this is what the developer intended to construct. The calculations that were done to make sure that the TIF district would work were done on the basis of the development plan. And we used assessments, value ranges for what was being constructed as defined by the development plan. And so in order for the developer to eventually qualify for the benefit of a TIF district, it's important that they pretty much construct and follow the plan so that the calculated values would actually work, come out. One of those buildings was the community bank, what I'll call their headquarters facility. And that building has been built. And I think if they hadn't already done the ribbon cutting thing, it's pretty close. I think they're not too far away from being able to occupy that building. There's also been some residential construction that you can see from East Metro Parkway that's outside of the TIF district. That's a part of the property that was not included in the TIF footprint. I think I'm right. And so that's not on the table for discussion here. The request that is coming before you whenever you are ready to take it up, the request is we need to add, the developer, we need to add a 12-acre parcel that was shown on the original development plan but not included in the TIF district. We need to include the 12-acre parcel into the TIF district. This would expand the TIF district from its current acreage of 30 up to about 42 to 43 acres total. On the 12-acre slice to be included, the developer is planning to construct an assisted living facility, which is a commercial operation on what was clearly defined as commercial property on the TIF plan that was adopted in 2018. Nothing else about what you did in 2018 is being changed. Nothing else. The county's commitment at 2018 to provide for debt services purposes 20 mills, or half of your county millage, that is exactly the same. Nothing's changed. The amount of the debt that is eligible to be issued through bonds by the city of Flowood is unchanged, 5.5 million. So that hasn't changed. Your commitment hasn't changed. Literally the only change that affects us and that they need is putting the 12 acres that'll be an assisted living facility. I think that's mostly what will be placed there. There may be some additional ancillary development that goes with that, full disclosure. But that is what will be included back in the TIF, and the way that works is, as the assessor is making valuations, that assisted living facility and those ancillary structures on the 12 acres would be included in the debt service obligation. So Mr. Gurris is here to give you any additional information that you may need past what I've said.
Thank you. Great background. So a couple things you might go, okay, why? So that is the request that this 12 acres be added. And as Mr. Slay pointed out, that acreage was always land that we owned. It was part of the town center where the mixed-use development will occur. And it was just planned commercial. We didn't know what would go there, who would want it, how it would come into play. And at the time, the city wanted to build, not have us build, but the city wanted to build a thoroughfare from East Metro around behind the shopping center through the Hogue property out to 25. And the commitment was the city had 5 years to do that, and we're knocking on 5 years now. And because we didn't know what was going to develop on that 12 acres, we weren't in any real hurry. We were satisfied to just let the city's obligation run its course. And for a variety of reasons, the city had decided they don't want to do that thoroughfare. We never really wanted a massive thoroughfare through the heart of the development. But the key thing is it was land that we didn't control. Had we owned that land, we would have granted the city the right of way to run it through there, but it goes through other people's property that we didn't have control of. And now we've got the opportunity to develop a really nice state-of-the-art first-class assisted living facility, and we need to put in infrastructure that we didn't originally contemplate having to fund. And so that's why we're asking for the 12 acres to be added to it. Not asking for any increase in the TIF, but allowing a little bit of adjacent development that we plan to do, 20 mills of your taxation generated from that to go into the pot to help us recover. And big picture things, Mr. Slay alluded to it, but our original plan called for a lot more square footage than we think ultimately will be built there. My client did not originally plan this development. He picked it up secondhand, and we think today's market is going to have less square footage overall than what was originally contemplated, so less tax revenue for y'all and for us to be able to recoup that $5.5 million in TIF. We still think it's going to be a very substantive, meaningful development in the community. But the taxes that were originally thought to be built there in 2008, when the Flowood Town Center was contemplated, were this big, a very aggressive plan for development, that the 2008, crisis just kind of caused that project not to go forward. The next developer that came along, my client was a partner putting the land in the deal with a Louisiana developer that had done a lot of mixed use throughout the southeast, and that didn't kind of work out. And so my client has taken over the project, built, I think y'all all know who he is. He's built the corporate headquarters and has taken it over, and this isn't really what he does. But he's determined to build a first-class facility in Rankin County. Kind of won't take no for an answer, jump over any hurdle that comes his way. And they've put in a lot of infrastructure really ahead of demand, and making really significant risk and investment to move this project forward. And this piece of infrastructure was not contemplated, and working with the city to agree, all right, y'all won't build the road for various reasons, we're gonna have to put infrastructure in front of the assisted living site, because part of what the city was gonna do was gonna serve this 12 acres. And so that's the reason we're asking for the consideration.
All right. Any questions?
I have one question. Do you have a commitment from the developer? What kind of commitment do you have? Because if the revenues don't materialize, then you have the possibility of the taxpayers picking up the slack. So,
Well, no, sir, because here's the big check and balance for the public sector, for the city and county. There's a TIF plan in place. If the county favorably considers this, the TIF plan will be a little bit larger. But we put in the infrastructure, we take the risk, and the city and county are not asked to issue the bonds until improvements are made and properties go on the tax roll. So, for example, if we look up and there's the corporate headquarters there, and there's a 12-acre assisted living development, and there's gonna be a certified amount of taxes that the tax assessor's office is gonna be able to say are created, and let's say those two things generate $2 million in bonds, not 5.5, we'll only get part of our money back. We take the risk. So until such time as that thing develops to a point that there's enough revenue, that's kind of like your fee and lieu. There's checks and balances.
It's a check and
there.
balance. Keep in mind, it's called tax increment financing for a reason. If there ain't no increment, there ain't no financing. That's the way it works. And so our tax assessor has got to say, you know what? I don't believe we're gonna get the increment. If he says that, they say, uh-oh, how much bond can we float with the increment that we ended up with? So there's a calculation about valuations that occurs. Tax revenue is collected, and you keep half of your new tax revenue, and you give half of it over to those who are responsible to see to it that the bonds are paid. That's how it works.
And one important point, if I may, in these joint city-county tax increment financing arrangements, y'all enter into an interlocal with the city, you make your portion of the revenue available to the city, and the city actually issues those bonds.
We may get hammered on that. Yeah, so I don't think there's gonna be a problem with us hitting our numbers based on what I was just shown. The value of the structures that are out of the ground are larger than any amount we anticipated. Yeah, so
Okay.
I think we're gonna be in good shape.
All right. Any other questions?
If you have questions of Chris, please ask those. My question would be this: do any of you have an issue with our asking that the action that they need from this board be on your agenda for Monday? Can we go ahead and get it on the agenda for Monday?
I would
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
I would like
So
that.
we have some deadline targets.
Yeah.
This is the process where we have to notify the public. You will adopt what's called a resolution of intent, meaning that you intend to. We ask the public to come and tell us why we shouldn't. If they don't, then you adopt this TIP plan with the amendments.
Right.
So there's a process and timelines that we gotta hit. It's important that we go ahead and act on Monday. Full disclosure, we think that the city is on board with this request, but we won't know that until Monday night. And so I'm gonna ask you on Monday to make your action contingent upon the city's action in like manner.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank y'all, appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
I'm gonna hand y'all a statement. This relates to the fee in lieu of taxes with Menasha that we just talked about. This is a statement that has been put together, and I just want you to read through it. I'm not asking you to say one way or the other about this statement today, but sometime before Monday, when you have a chance to read through it, respond and tell me whether or not you like the statement, you're good with it, that you would be satisfied for that to be a statement on your behalf concerning this expansion project in the Pelahatchie Industrial Park. That's what that's for, because we expect that there's gonna be some, this will go into a larger press release that is put out by the company. So they requested that if the board is of a mind to approve everything, that there be some sort of statement that could be included on your behalf. So you'll have an opportunity over the weekend to look at that. If you have any issues, want something changed, just shoot me an email or a text.
All right, thank you, Mr. Slay.
One other matter, Mr. President, I actually have two other matters that I wanted to address with you. One is, so I've got two of you guys committed to a spring, this will be a February, March trip up to see our federal delegation. I'm looking at my two who are already committed to my spring trip, right? In the interim, with what is anticipated now to happen next Tuesday, it is important that we have an intervening run up, and I am asking for permission to set a quick trip up on December 6th so that we can have some necessary conversations with those who are going to be in different seats come January 1. And so I would just simply ask, this is unanticipated on your part. I don't necessarily have to have any others go. If you would like to go with this little bit of notice, you are welcome to talk about that amongst yourselves and quickly, hurriedly let me know. But my anticipation is that this will be a very quick turnaround, total focus on getting into and out of offices, a very quick up and back. This is going to be a lot of logistics and work. It is. My two who are going to go in the spring are going to have a much better time because the schedule will allow things to be a little more flexible.
Best supervisor to ever serve in Rankin County, who gains? Who is it?
Terry?
It's Jay Bishop, there ain't no
Well,
question
there's
about it.
very specific reasons why the two that I'd asked to go with me in the spring are going. What they don't know is they're gonna spend a whole lot more time in federal agencies than they are in Congress offices. Full disclosure, just letting you know ahead of time. But so if
So
you
what's the
get,
driving force for December?
the fact that we're gonna have, positionally, we're gonna have 3 of our our federal delegation who are gonna be seated in committees with actual authority and power.
So who is it we're sending outside? This is pretend like the board's not involved. Who would be going in
Yep.
December?
Myself, Mr. Jones, Ryan Herndon with Wagner, and probably we will meet with John Robert Smith, who is with Transportation for America. We will meet with John Robert in D.C. And my understanding is that other individuals associated with Wagner who are in D.C., resident in D.C., will be present. But from the travelers here, it's just me and Trey and Ryan. I'm not asking for any of you to go, but if any of you feel strongly and you have the availability to do it, I need you to tell me, like today.
I have great confidence that you'll take care of all of it.
All right.
I'll go.
No.
Brad, you want to go? All right,
gonna
does anybody have a problem with Brad being the representative? It is better, let me say this too, that, some of you guys are pretty busy these days. Y'all got a lot of stuff going on yourselves and on your mind, and so, I'm trying to be thoughtful about that too. Y'all got other things that are priorities for you, and so this, I don't want to mislead anybody, because my concern would be that I take one or more of you guys on this trip, and what you find is you don't feel like you made any impact. And my concern is, I've been doing this enough now, my concern is that I don't want you using your time, effort, energy, and time away from your constituents for something that you don't feel like you're getting anything out of. So if you got the time to go, you want to go, I want you to go, but I would suggest to you, we've got better things that we can do with our time between now and spring. All right, anybody?
Do we need to take any action
Yeah,
at this
so
point?
on Monday, I'm gonna ask, we'll have it somewhere on there, just authorizing the group to be able to make that travel, and to have the authority to reimburse for travel-related costs associated with it, okay?
Okay.
We'll do that on Monday. Last thing, we've got an opportunity that I want to share with you. We have a firm deadline, so I'm bringing this to you. I won't ask you to make a decision today unless you're prepared to do so. We have an important project, and by the way, the person on the board who has the most to gain from this project has not heard this. We have a very important project. It's called Florence Byron Parkway. We have the ability, should the board choose to authorize it, to secure, at least to apply for, and we feel strongly that we've got a very good case to secure some important federal funding associated with that project. As you know, one of the components of that project is our interaction with the Canadian National Railway. And so there is a portion of this project that has a pretty high price tag associated with what do you do with that. CN has been very resistant to any effort that we would make to do an at-grade crossing. They don't want an at-grade crossing. They have resisted that. They have put barriers up to try to disincentivize us to do that. They told us we had to close 2 public crossings in order to qualify for one at-grade crossing at that location. And what we discovered was the cost to do 2 public crossing closures and provide for some other means of alternate access to the property owners who would be impacted is cost prohibitive. We won't be able to generate the funds to do that. Because of the position that we find ourselves in, there is some federal funding available to help us with that. We have to make an application, and by the way, we've already had some success with this process already on our Highway 18. This would be a Chrissy grant, and we've been counseled by our advisors in DC. You asked me what are we going up there to talk about on December the 6th. This would be one item that we would address on December the 6th. And we would address it directly with those who can give counsel and advice on how we best position our request. So that's why it's part of why it's not the only reason, but it's part of why we would want to go, okay? And so when we have those discussions, we want to be best positioned. And if we are going to do this, we've got a December 1 deadline. Our folks that will help us put together an application, should you choose to authorize it, our folks that can do that, have committed that they will have the application ready by that deadline if they get authorization to do it. That's why I think I need to ask you to help us with that on Monday if you are willing.
It's not the same combination of the applications we dropped the ball on in September, is it? The people
No, sir.
putting that together, not the same group.
These are totally different things. Daniel, I'm willing to, just speak the truth here about that. That is stormwater related. That is Corps of Engineers related. That is.
You said the word.
It's not transportation. We've had really good success on transportation, initiatives, and we are, unfortunately, because of the core impact, we struggle some dealing with that. We don't have to deal with the core when we start talking about transportation initiatives like this. We eventually will, but railroad crossings does not implicate the core.
Yet.
So,
Yet.
right.
Until
So,
we find a turtle.
Again,
or
just,
a-
hey,
Well, we've
just to
already
close the
done the
loop
farm
on what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
Environmental done.
but they change all that on you. They come back and they said, there's these special turtles
Well,
that
they've
float
already
around.
approved
There's
that so far,
eligibility
but we got by
to
that.
secure,
2 years
I
to do
hope.
it. 2 years.
there's eligibility to secure several $1 million in federal funding. It would be, in my opinion, it's totally my opinion, I'm way over my skis, I apologize in advance for saying this. It would be disheartening to leave that kind of potential federal funding for that part of this project. It'd be disheartening to me for us not to make a run at it. Your cost to make a run at it, your cost is about $30,000.
For several million.
The Chrissy grant, was it 6 million on the
1.5.
Yes, we asked for 1.5 million, Steve.
Oh, okay.
and-
All right.
But that's not what we were eligible for, and it's not all that we will ask for eventually.
Yeah.
It was a defined part of this project, has to do with design and right-of-way acquisition. We carved out just those pieces and asked the feds to help us with just funding just those pieces. And they said, yeah, we're in.
Okay.
And so we secured that through a process that will be very similar to what I'm asking you about, a very similar project with very similar circumstances that will qualify, we believe, qualify for the funding. I think it is, yes, it's an investment. Yes, it's the potential for not recovering your investment, but the payoff at the end is substantial. And so I am suggesting that you give it serious consideration. I'd like for you to consider it on Monday so that we can have our team working immediately to make our application be as complete as it can possibly be. So does anyone have an objection to our having a request for authorization to complete that application before you on Monday?
I do not.
I think we are good.
So, Ms. Sam, I owe you several items to stick on to November the 7th agenda. Gentlemen, that's all I can think of that I had. I probably left something off, but
We'll be here Monday.
So is there any word on, DEQ or Horn, whoever's doing the tallies?
thank you for asking. I don't want to say too much because it's an incomplete process. You know your team well enough to know Brad, y'all, my book ends. You know your team well enough, Jay, to know that we have had continuing discussions with anybody that we can talk to. DEQ has indicated, solely to the extent unofficial, off the record, don't you dare tell anybody I told y'all this, they have indicated that there is no other county, municipality, water, so there is no other applicant that has submitted an application with the quality and completeness that is Rankin County's application. We stand alone. That the vast majority of applicants have not provided the level of information that would allow them to score at a significantly higher level than we can.
Right.
Those are
See,
positive.
Brad, that night you and I worked on it all night. It paid off. It paid off.
I knew it. When Jay wrote the footprint on how to do it, look, I knew it was gonna be successful. You know?
I do want to hasten to add something about this. you guys may have some idea about what your team looks like, and it would be wrong to leave out your county consulting engineer. That application could not possibly get where it is or score where it is without Tim's work and without his team's work, without his employees' work. They brought it home. They got us what was needed to make our application as complete as it could be. And they worked, honestly, they worked overtime to make it happen. Same thing with Benchmark. Those guys had to bring it. And you guys handed them late in the game, y'all handed them 5 additional projects off of that list. And so they had to come to the table and bring it hard. And I am really, really happy with this. This is important for you to know. You've got 3 different sets of engineers, and I'm picking on the engineers if I can. But you got 3 different sets of engineers
Tim's enjoying it.
who are having to navigate a very complex situation where none of them has any real clear definition of responsibility. And they were able to do it. They were able to pull it off. In essence, what they did, thankfully, is they said, you know what? I'm not really that concerned about who gets the credit, which it's just got to get done. So I'm going to do it. And they did it, and they worked together, and they cooperated. What I like about what has happened here is that I think it sets the stage eventually for us to have additional cooperative action on multiple fronts amongst this group of engineers who are working together now. It looks like in the future we've got a pathway, because we've done it now, we've got a pathway to see how can these 3 different engineering firms work together on a number of different ways and projects that bring benefit to the county, and they each have their own skill sets. And so it's working. It's working, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful, and I feel like Tim needs the credit for that. Wagner did what they needed to do on our application to get that done. Tim did what he needed to do. Greg Bonds, Benchmark, did what they needed to do. Your legislative team has done everything that they can possibly do to make sure that.
We still don't have any idea.
We won't have an idea, Jay. I'm not expecting an answer. I'm not expecting an answer until sometime in December. You'll be the first to know. The minute we get word, you will know where we stand. I am encouraged by what I hear. I am hopeful.
So Daniel still got a chance he can let one project go.
I said I wouldn't bring it up till January. I promised young Timmy over there I wouldn't bring it up, so I'm not
I
gonna
hope
bring it
by
up
the
then.
time you're ready to bring it up, we will know where we
promise I
stand
wouldn't.
on that, okay?
I'm gonna bring it up in 2024.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
And it's gonna be a public, I'm gonna be standing right there.
I feel good
You're gonna
about it.
cut me off, but I'm gonna have 3 minutes, and it's gonna be a good one. But Slade, while you're here, will you talk about the Region 8 thing just a second?
Absolutely.
As an
Thank you.
awareness.
Thank you for
While
saying
you're
that.
up, I know we got Larry in here at the same point, but
Yep.
would you mind just kind of
Thank you.
updating the board to where we can, I don't need our feet dragging on this, I need it rolling.
Absolutely.
For sure, so.
I hadn't been up here long enough, so thank you, Daniel. Give me even more time at the podium. Yesterday, we had a great meeting, I thought, with Merit Health, with the CEO. And so Ms. Sistrunk, Heather Sistrunk, if you get a chance to meet her, she's super nice, very capable, and a good asset for us to have here in Rankin County. But we had a good meeting, and we broached the subject with them about the potential that I still refer to it as the old Fitness Plus facility, okay? That's the only way I know to call it.
Yep.
Right? So it's been vacant. It's been
Yeah.
vacant for quite some time. But the old Fitness Plus facility is a facility that is not currently being used within the context of Merit's structure. They had some plans associated with it, but the cost to rehab the facility was kind of a limiting factor for them. And so they just kind of shelved their plans, and it has sat vacant. There's been a ton of inquiries about that facility. It's a great location. The facility itself is still actually in pretty good shape. It's got some things that need to be done, some minimal maintenance type of activity. And so, but we feel good about the condition of the building in the early stages. More information needs to be gleaned before we know where we're headed with this. But we broached the subject with them. Would you be interested? Could you find your leadership in a position where they could authorize the release from the lease of the old Fitness Plus facility as part of the lease. Would y'all be willing to entertain that discussion? Of course, she was curious what's gonna be there. I would be, if I'm the hospital and I control that property, I wanna know what's gonna be there. So we had a representative of Region 8 with us at the meeting, a lady by the name of Karen Lewis. Dave Van would have been there, but Dave had a brand-new grandbaby, and we gave him an excused absence to go see his new grandbaby. And Ms. Lewis filled in and did an excellent job of explaining how Region 8 could see itself utilizing the facility. So Region 8's representative explained, we anticipate that this facility would be used for acute psychiatric care as part of Region 8's structure, that referrals from their multiple county-wide system could be made available for purposes of treatment, acute treatment. It's designed to be sort of a short-term arrangement. This is a place for folks having acute psychiatric episodes to land for a short period of time until they can find appropriate bed space in other locations. It's a great niche where it's a stopgap measure, and you can imagine the benefits that we would see from law enforcement being able to access that, our Chancery Court being able to access that, where we've got people who are having acute psychiatric episodes that need a place, but there's not appropriate bed space in a long-term care facility available. And so the hospital, when she heard that, I think there was a level of excitement there about how that could be symbiotic, how that could be something helpful to the hospital. And so they're very open to a further discussion on that. I was encouraged that they are open to it, and they want to move the discussion forward. I anticipate that there's going to have to be a process of negotiating with the hospital about how that ultimately plays out. You will have to approve an amendment to the lease to carve it out of the lease footprint. And so we're not anywhere close to a decision, but further discussions are clearly appropriate at this point, and we intend to move those forward quickly. I'll leave anything out, Daniel?
I think that's it. I just want everybody to understand that process is moving, and there's gonna be some renovation issues and stuff that we do if we can get it all carved out of the lease, but Slade needs to be kind of blessed by the group to say, hey, keep heading down the road and figure out what's gotta happen on the lease issue, on obtaining the building. There's a certain amount of funding that comes with the legislature that's given the Region 8 on some of this stuff, and we don't wanna get to the point to where the legislature says, you didn't utilize this funding, and we're gonna take the money to study oysters in the Gulf, or something like that.
Yes,
So
right.
we wanna keep it focused around this idea, so we wanna keep the traction moving, and also the point that Region 8 doesn't go to another county
Yeah.
and say, hey, we wanna put this here. So we wanna keep those talks going pretty quickly so we can keep that moving. I know Mr. Larry's talked to some people on cost and stuff of the building, the renovations and stuff like that.
I've already energized the architects that are specialized in this particular type of facility, met with them and inspected the building, and everything just kind of like fell into place. So they're real excited that it's not gonna be as much as we thought.
The current facility that is available through Region 8 system for folks in Rankin County that need this care, Brookhaven. This is a big deal for Rankin County to have a facility that is sized appropriately, located conveniently, and available. And so we don't have to tote folks all the way to Brookhaven or ask them to transport themselves.
The main
This is
thing
a
is,
win-win either way.
I just wanted the board to know what's going on,
Okay.
that there is traction, and it's moving, and
Tremendous savings to the sheriff's
Slade's
department
going.
and the county.
We make a lot of trips.
They make a lot of trips for us down there and back.
Yep.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Anything else from me?
No,
Y'all, if
hopefully
you
not.
hadn't had a belly full,
I can't help you.
You've been saving up, hadn't you?
yeah.
All right, Mr. Hicks, take us on down.
All right, item A is authority to apply for a local assistance and tribal consistency fund. This is something akin to ARPA. It's additional funding, and all we have to do is what we've been told is apply for it, and we should get $50,000 over the next 2 years, which can be used pretty much for general county services.
I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve. Second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
All right, item B is approval of request from the National Exchange Club Foundation for fiscal '23 recreational funds in the amount of $2,016.16. And it'll be used for the Richland softball team.
I'll make a motion approved.
Second.
All right, motion made, Mr. Morrison, second by Mr. Gaines. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
All right, and we have the November 7th Monday agenda, if you have any questions.
I got one deal, and I just kinda found out this and talked to Mr. Slade yesterday about it. There's a high voltage transmission line that's coming from North Rankin through Rankin, Brandon, going to Betha Road out there on 468. And I've had a lot of folks to reach out to me here in the last week about them not being notified or getting letters from the cooperative energy companies, and I think Southern Pines maybe the head electrical company that's doing it, but there's a cooperative of multiple other energy, I think Central Electric and a few other, but I talked to Brent Bailey yesterday, and they already had a public hearing on this at the Brandon City Hall, and a lot of these folks didn't know that there was even a public hearing. Of course, Craig can fill you in on the legal side of what the requirements are of the notices, and, I mean, this, they are acquiring 100-foot right-of-way, and some of these properties that they going through are splitting properties up. I mean, going through like the middle of a property, and I've seen 2 maps, and
This is new. This is a new.
new infrastructure coming through.
That's exactly right. So this is a high-power transmission line. It's not just one electric utility,
Yeah.
Steve.
Right.
It's involved, because it's a part of a
Right.
capacity system.
TVA.
Sir,
Is it part of TVA?
I don't know that TVA is
Tennessee
involved.
Valley?
This is called the electric cooperative, is how it's referred to. I would assume that that is similar to a TVA,
Yeah.
without the quasi-public piece of it. It's all private.
And they're not regulated by the Public Service Commission, or, I mean, this is, I don't know really who regulates them.
This is a electric capacity enhancement project. And multiple electric utilities will benefit from additional power supply being available to what is currently undeveloped raw property, primarily on the east side of Brandon. So if you think about Grants Ferry Parkway, if you think about our East Brandon Loop segment, where some transportation projects, Steve, are coming, they're under consideration online. As you add additional transportation infrastructure, you will promote and get, as a result, additional residential and commercial development. That has to have power. So in preparation for future development, this cooperative, the group of a bunch of electric utilities has gotten together and said, we need to figure out how to supply that power, and we need a high-power transmission line for the capacity that we anticipate having to have. They went to the Public Service Commission in late 2021, and they went through a public hearing at the PSC to establish that there is a public need for additional electric power supply at that location. And the PSC said, we find that that is a public need, and we give you the authority to move forward with your plan. That's the end of the road from a PSC regulatory. They cleared that hurdle. And so where we think they are in the process, and let me say this, this is not a county matter. The extent to which you guys are involved is where this high-power transmission line may cross a public road. You're gonna probably need to submit a request for a permit to go across our right-of-way. And that's the extent, if they're in our road right-of-way for some reason, if they implicate a current road right-of-way for part of the transmission infrastructure, they'll have to deal with us on a permit, but we don't regulate them. We don't tell them where to run their lines. We just tell them, hey, if you're gonna cross us, you need to get a permit, and we need to know what you're doing. And so that's the county's involvement in this. I think Brad is pointing out to you that our constituents don't know who to call. They're not able to get in touch with Electric Cooperative. They're not able to get information, so they reached out to Brad, and to his credit, Brad's saying, I'll try to find out what I can. So I'm giving you guys some information because you may get contacted at some point. And one of the first things that they need to understand is, this is not something that the Board of Supervisors is able to speak on. It's not something, but we are concerned, right? We want to make sure that property owners are going to have their properties implicated by this project, that they're fairly and adequately compensated. I would like to suggest that if there are ways that voluntarily the cooperative and the property owners can figure out how to reduce the impact to the property, and that can be done efficiently, that they ought to do that. They ought to get together and try to find a way to make it work by way of agreement, instead of forcing.
You mean they had, but I'm surprised they hadn't already been to them, because they did everybody when they're down off of, Clear Road and Hickory Ridge. They
Well,
went
I've
to
had
everyone
3 or 4
like 3
landowners
years ago.
call me and said, listen, the only notice they got was that a surveying crew were gonna be on your property surveying a 100-foot right of way.
They like 3 years ago, they contacted them. So, anyway, how can they do that without contacting them?
They have authority as a public utility to behave similarly to governments. They have eminent domain authority.
Yeah, but it sounds like they did it before they even asked.
Yeah, so as a matter of courtesy, Jared, and this is a quick reminder to you guys on our road projects, this is what we do. Whether we're required to do it or not, we do it as a courtesy. We tell our acquisition agents, you make sure the property owners know what's going on. And so before anything is done, there is a contact letter from our acquisition guys that says, hey, this is who we are. We're gonna be in touch with you eventually, and you may see some folks out doing some staking or survey work. Just be aware of what that is and why. And we tell them that on the front end, and every property owner that's implicated on the project gets one of those. I can't answer why, in this case, the electric cooperative would have notified some property owners, but not others. I can't answer that, I don't know why.
I don't know, this is obviously different from what has been going on in the north part of the county, northwest, where they renovated. I mean, they come in and took down old poles and put up new, and it's big stuff, but they were super nice, and they were in person coming out, meeting, and.
Is that TBA, Steve?
Yeah.
It was.
And anyhow.
I don't think the landowners, everybody knows that we got to have more power, because most of these grids are at capacity now. But that's not the issue is notification and not being told what's going on, and you going across somebody's property.
With TVA, they.
But the same way where I'm talking about, I guess the energy.
Yeah.
They do have the authority.
Yeah, oh yeah.
To do their survey work. They do have that authority. They've been approved by the PSC as it relates to the project. I don't believe that there has ever been a defined pathway for this infrastructure. I have not seen any maps. Wow. None of the maps, nothing has been disclosed to the PSC that would be in the nature of a map that defines the actual pathway. When they went to the PSC, they talked in terms of, we need to go generally in this direction.
Point A to point B.
Generally in this direction, and we want to end up at this point.
Well, maybe when it gets to
Obviously,
that
we
point.
didn't have
they'll-
that
they'll
because the
go
line
through.
was already established. The line was there.
They already had the right of way.
Maybe when they come up with the exact right of way, then they'll start approaching the people.
That's an excellent point. I suggested, when Brian and I talked about this, I suggested that where they may be at the moment is, they may be phasing this project. They may have decided, we're gonna build this part of the new system, and that's it. And what we're talking about here is discussions that implicate properties well beyond that in another phase, and that's why no contact's been made.
Mr. Marcus, were you at the public hearing when they had that? Did you know anything about it? Well, obviously, they had to run it in the paper or something, but.
You now have information if you get contacted. PSC was involved, it's been approved. We don't know why there hasn't been better contact or communication. And this is not a project that Rankin County will be heavily involved in, except to the extent that it crosses our public roads.
Sounds good.
Good deal. Is there a need for executive session?
No.
Oh, not.
Huh, really? Alright,
All right, I'll make a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
alright, do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
No, and he walks up to the
Aye.
podium. Aye. Gaines said aye.
He'll be here in a minute.
It don't
Now, do
matter.
I have a motion to go into executive
All right,
session?
let's go.
Motion made by Mr. Cross. I'll second myself
All first, aye.
to go. All in favor say aye.
Let's go.